Senate Committee on Education will come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Taylor?
Here.
Lucio? Present. Betancourt? Here. Campbell? Fallon? Here. Hall? Here. Hughes? Paxson? Powell? Watson? Here. West?
We have a quorum present. At this time, members, I'm going to pass the gavel to Senator Lucio to recognize me on Senate Bill 3. House Bill 3, I'm sorry.
Chair will lay out House Bill 3, recognize the Senate sponsor, Chairman Taylor, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, we're a little faster on our schedule than we had originally planned. We did get the draft back from Ledge Council last night. Your office, I believe, got that last evening, around 7 or so. I'm going to just highlight the differences in what we did. And frankly, there's not a whole lot substantive in here. We had some clerical Ledge Council corrections we needed to make from the original draft. But first of all, it clarifies that the commissioner must adopt at least one alternative third grade reading assessment instrument other than STAR that may be used to measure the number of students who meet the third grade reading level. You know, we've heard a lot of complaints about whether STAR is at level, so they can also use an alternative. Clarifies that by the 2022-2023 school year, these assessments, the STAR, should be online. Like we talked about, a smaller test given at the beginning of the year, maybe in the middle of the year and towards the end, less stressful, can be done during a regular bell schedule. So it's not don't have the same security issues and all. Take advantage of the E-rate program we passed where every school has broadband, but moving the STAR test where it's actually more useful and beneficial to the students as well as the teachers. They know where the students are at the beginning of the year rather than finding out at the end. We discussed that the other day. Corrects a drafting error related to small and mid-sized district adjustments that had incorrectly inverted the formulas. Clarifies the P-TECH funding set aside is subtracted from the total statewide CTE allotment. It also clarifies college, career, or military readiness funding is a bonus based on performance outcomes rather than an allotment. The compensatory spectrum by which the incentive allotment applies is based on census block group. We're actually going down to that census block for the density measurements in our compensatory education funding. And directs TEA to work in conjunction with the Higher Education Coordinating Board to develop a FAFSA opt-out form. The original bill just said every school could come up with their own form. We feel like it's more important to have a standardized form that everybody use. And it creates a set-aside for the blending learning grants. Hit your mic.
Senator West?
Mr. Chairman, that's FAFSA and TASFA?
Yes, yeah. And members, I apologize for having to do this at the pace we're doing, but based on the time and where we are in the session and what's going on with the House and changing some of our revenue sources for this, some of those bills have to start in the House, so we needed to get started to get this out to show them where we have a bill that they need to help us fund. So that's why we are where we are. I've told members we're going to be voting at 10:45. Obviously, this room is going to be used for other purposes at 11. So we just need to finish up then. So at this time, I'd be happy to take comments, questions.
Questions, members? Senator West?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be very supportive of moving this process forward. We just got some draft runs.
And those are TEA runs.
These are TEA runs, not LBB runs.
Yeah.
And they're, I understand that.
Would you put your mic on? Is it on?
Yeah, he's just closer.
It is on.
Can you hear me, Senator?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I recognize that in terms of the portions of the bill dealing with the education reforms, some of the finance reforms, and also the property tax reform. So at some point, I want to sit down with Leo or Vaughn or someone to be able to go through those before we vote on this on the floor. And then secondly, as it relates to amendments that we want the chair or the author to consider, what will be the process for that? I assume getting it to Daniel, and then he'll bring them to you and those that you agree on.
Anyone on the Education Committee staff, obviously amendments that are going to affect fiscal issues, as complicated as this is, I'd rather not have those pop out on Friday. So if you have some things that are addressed, they're going to address financial issues, that we have those beforehand so we can try to get an idea of the cost of those before Friday. We are planning on doing this on Friday.
And that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so, other amendments, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and talk to you about those beforehand. We can do amendments on Friday. We don't have time to do them today because they would require going back and getting them all drafted before we brought them to the floor. And you see how long this takes to get to where we are. If you'll remember, we had this out Thursday of last week and it took till last night to get what we got back. So timeliness is of the essence at this point. So certainly Friday we'll be doing amendments on the floor. But if it has something to do with some financial things, I really would appreciate so we can have a meaningful and knowing what we're voting for on the floor, have some idea what those costs are.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I noticed going through the bill that was laid out, there are a lot of changes from the State Board of Education to the Commissioner. And I understand that some of those is because SBOE no longer provides those functions.
Yeah, a lot of it was
I'd
cleaned up.
ask that we make certain that we're not, Mike Morath is a good, one of the best, but he's not an elected official. And so I want to make certain that we're not providing a non-elected official duties that we heretofore have been and continue to be performed by elected officials.
And Senator Weston, you had asked me about that earlier, and I've asked staff to go through and highlight every one of those spots so we can explain what each one of those is.
Okay.
And have that for you as well.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator West.
Thank you, Senator West. Senator Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too, because I want to see significant education reform, and as I said at our hearing last week, believe that there's a lot of very good things that we're now talking about. I'm going to be supportive of moving the process along as well. Thinking this was going to be a little bit later, we had already started the process of putting together amendments that I had hoped I would be able to put together, visit with you, maybe even visit with other members before we got to a committee meeting, and then at the committee meeting, lay them out, even if I didn't ask for a vote on them, just so that the Education Committee would have the opportunity to discuss them, because I also recognize that I may have ideas that with the amount of work that you've put into this, you might say, well, here's what you're not thinking about, and here's why that creates a problem that I would agree with. So I'm not going to do that this morning, because I know what our time situation is. I will get these to you as rapidly as possible, but I do think it's important, and I know you do as well, and this is not a criticism at all, because I know what we're doing, I know what the gun we're under, but I think it's going to be important that on the floor we have the opportunity to really talk through some of these things. Otherwise, I worry that the process becomes so rapid that people don't trust what's in the bill. So again, I'm going to be supportive of moving the process, but I want to make sure we have a full discussion on the floor.
Yes, and certainly we're going to have that on Friday. I mean, I would have preferred to have had it done in committee. We didn't have to have a long discussion on the floor.
Again, I want to be clear. I'm not criticizing. I know what's going on, and I'm supportive because I think this is such a good opportunity for us to have real change and real reform that can be meaningful. But I just want to make sure we have the opportunity to discuss, and I'll lay down on the amendments today so that we don't eat up time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Watson. Senator Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I kind of echo the same sentiments, the concern that moving through this thing, and I understand, this is no criticism to you. I think you're working as hard as you can. I know where your heart is in trying to move this. And because most of what we have in here came out of a lot of hard work in the interim with the commission that was set up, and it's being reflected in here. But coming in here today, and in the end, I'm not going to necessarily get in the way of moving it, because we've got to move this forward. But we didn't even have a ledge council version of this thing till we sat down at the desk here this morning. What we had was a non-ledge council, and there were changes in it. No fiscal note, and the runs, not even sure what they're based on, but we got some. They look nice, but can't really assess them. Don't know, and I guess there's no funding mechanism in here, or it's a blank, and so that's yet to be determined, and that was rather contentious in the previous version of what we're doing. Or what are the tax increases tied to this? I mean, what are we looking at? And I know that it sounds like that's going to be kind of decided separate from this. So as I understand, there is no tax increase in this bill per se. There's just a reference to a couple of documents that will come later.
That's correct.
All right. And one question I do have, though, is on where we change from allotment to bonus for the third outcomes. How does that affect funding? Or
Well, it's just,
what is?
rather than running it through the formula, it's a set aside separate from the formulas that you get outside of formulas, is what that means.
Okay. How will that be determined for the school?
I'm sorry, which bonus are you referring to?
I'm sorry.
Which bonus are you referring to?
Page 51. Page 51, line 14. And the other question is, I mean, are we really bonuses for the 25th percentile?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
And 25th percentile seems kind of low for being an achievement, being proud of.
Well, what they do is they go through the different levels that we have now, low income, English language learners, and it's the 25th percentile of that. So you give the bonus for everyone above that deal by the different categories. Yeah, so you don't get what they're doing right now. There's no bonus basically for just doing what you're doing. The bonus is meant to achieve higher levels of attainment for more students. So the bonus starts above that 25th percentile level. Does that make sense? Because that's kind of where they are.
Okay. And that's just my understanding. What you have here is not dependent on having any new taxes.
Well, this bill, for it to work, is going to have some new revenues. That question is yet to be decided, and some of those new revenues may very well involve a bill that has to start in the House, which is why the process has been sped up to today, because the House, the last day to get bills off the floor is Tuesday of next week. So that's why we're here today doing what we're doing with a blank, because we don't know what that's going to be.
Or is it? Because there was some discussion.
You'll have a separate opportunity to vote on that on whatever bill that is. So you'll have an opportunity to pick what that is outside of this bill. We're just going to have a fund within the bill. I think what they call it last night, a tree or something, whatever it is. But that right now it's just in the bill as a blank because we don't know what that is going to be. We know what the number is, what we need to make this work the way we talked about. But I don't know what the revenue source is going to be. We had the 1 penny, which is what we've been talking about, and that wasn't popular, so we're looking at alternative sources.
But it could be a diversion or a redirection or reallocation.
It could be any number of things.
My point is, there's nothing here that's forcing us by this bill to go to a new tax.
No. I think reality says it will probably have to be some kind of a change of some sort, whether it's a new, I don't think we'll do a new tax, but maybe a change in a current existing tax or something.
Okay.
But I will say, it is our intention that any tax we have, anything we change, will be revenue neutral because it will be used for property tax reductions, which does in fact free up money to put to education.
Okay. When do you think we'll have the answer to the blanks that are in here, the HJRs?
Well, hopefully by next Tuesday.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have some direction coming out of this body. I mean, we had quite a bit of discussions yesterday, as you know, and hopefully we'll settle on something that this body can agree to as a consensus item to do that. But that's kind of what it's going outside of my authority at this point because I'm working on this. We had an idea, but we've changed that, so now we've got another group working on that. So, and I think the whole Senate's involved with that now. So we'll all have a say in what that is, but right now that's not what's before us. Today, we need to move this bill forward. And I really would appreciate, I know a number of you would rather not have to vote on this today. I certainly would appreciate your help in moving this bill forward. This is a process. This is not the end of the day. And frankly, what we pass out on the floor on Friday is not the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's going to be when we get this back from conference. But we've got to give our best effort to send over to the House. They've done their best what they could get out. It's going to go to conference. We'll all have a lot of time to discuss that. We have more time to discuss that process than what we have before us today. But this is not the final process. I can assure you the bill will change during this process. So even on Friday, I'm going to tell you this is part of the process. We're putting forth our best effort and doing what we think is best for the students of Texas and for our school systems. But the House is going to have some different opinions. We're going to have to work with that when it comes back. So.
Yeah. And yes, my conflict is with the source of funding for it, not what we're doing. I think what you put together here, the monumental changes that we're making in education, this opportunity we have is good. I mean, I think we're moving in the right direction on these things. I think some of this we're going to have to watch it closely to see how it unfolds, because as you well know from past experience, which you have a whole lot more than I do, that things often look different going out of here than what they do when they're being implemented. And I think we have to watch these, but for the most part, I think we've got some really good things in here that is going to improve education in Texas, and it's a great opportunity. You won't miss it. My in conflict is that I think we can do this without creating new taxes to do it. And so as long as it's not mixed in there that we're forced with that, I can support the functional things of what we're doing in here to improve education in Texas.
And save on property taxes. Yes. And reduce recapture. I mean, there's a number of positives in this bill. And we are imperfect people, and we're involved in an imperfect process. This is going to be our best effort to change the trajectory of education in Texas. And that's all I can tell you at this point. At this point, we're about halfway through the process. And so I'm asking if y'all can help me to vote this, to move this through the process, to keep going so we have to get to the end of the day and frankly make a real difference.
Okay.
I'd like to add, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to echo the Chairman's comments and requests. We are getting close to the end of the legislative session. We worked very hard during the interim. Senator Watson, I like what he had to say, Senator West, and you as well, Senator Hall. But it's a process that needs to continue, and each one in this committee has played an integral part in the process to this point, and many others who are in this chamber right now listening, and others who are not here who also played a very important part to get to this point. Obviously, I'm looking forward to myself to see how we offset property tax relief and reform, which I felt was long in coming. Senator Betancourt and myself and others traveled the whole state. We realized that had to be part of this process as well. So I appreciate the chairman's position this morning and efforts to continue the process and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to obviously voice his or her opinions about what the end product should be. So I appreciate the work that has gone into this. As I look at some of the handouts, I can certainly appreciate how many districts around the state will benefit over the hard work of this committee. So are there any other questions, Senator Hall?
I appreciate that, absolutely. And also, part of what I wanted to say is, I have a great deal of respect for Senator Watson, Senator West,
absolutely,
and what they've had to say about this being a deliberative body that carefully considers things, not rushed. And we pride ourselves in not being Washington, D.C., where we get something and have to vote on it before we know what's in it. And I understand I understand the pressure we're under with this thing being delayed. My feeling this should have been like the first thing we did and had plenty of time, but 300 pages and
296.
Excuse me,
right.
I exaggerated. I didn't mean to exaggerate.
296
pages that we don't see the official version until we sit down here it's just hard for me to say we're being deliberative, but I'm willing to work with it. But I just caution that we don't start setting precedents with doing things like this, because the thing that makes this a good body is how deliberative we are in working things through. And so I do hope that we'll be able to do that, and it's going to take an effort. So thank you.
Okay, Senator Taylor.
Yeah, and real quick, so
Chairman Taylor.
the bill is long, but this is pretty much what you saw Thursday, that you got, whatever it was. I know that was real close to the time, but we have had this basic bill. I think you got some red line versions your staff did last night, trying to show you where the differences were. Like I said, we were planning on doing this on Tuesday. Things have been sped up. We are where we are, but and this, once again, is not the final thing. We remember the story in Congress where we have to pass it, know what's in it. This is nothing like that. This bill is still halfway through the process. So I don't think this could be compared to that at all. We're not passing something we don't know what it is. The revenue issue is still up in the air, and we'll keep working on that. And
I think, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we have Senator Powell that had her hand up.
Mr. Chairman, before you call a vote today, I just had a couple of things that I would like to say as well. I do appreciate the hard work of the Commission to develop ways to be focused as a state on the quality of education for our children. But I want to also tell you that I appreciate your comments that there are people here that would prefer that we didn't vote on this bill today. And I am one of those. I intend to be part of the process to move this forward today. I want all of you to know that. But I approach this process with some grave concerns about some things that are in the bill, and I want to be assured that we will have the opportunity to work through the issues that present such concern for superintendents in my district. I spent the weekend poring through this bill and redlining it and highlighting it and poring over the things that concern me. And I visited with administrators throughout the districts in Senate District 10 who are extremely concerned about current versus present year values, who are very concerned about the issues surrounding outcomes-based performance that are based on test instruments that we have question of the validity. There are concerns that I have that have to do with broadening the scope of authority for the commissioner and diminishing the role of the State Board of Education. And I just want to be sure as we move forward in this process that we have the opportunity to deliberate over those things that our educators aren't comfortable with, that families in our districts aren't comfortable with. Our phone in our office is ringing off the wall. My inbox is filled with emails citing folks' concerns. And I would hesitate, I would be really unhappy if there were anyone in my Senate district that believed that I approached this process with anything other than complete and due diligence in my deliberations about this bill. I have great respect for all of you who have worked so hard to make sure that we finally recognize public education in the state of Texas, and that we do the right thing for our children, and that we focus on moving toward being a top 10 educator in our nation rather than in the bottom quadrant of how we deal with public ed. And so it's in that spirit that I'm willing to do my part in moving this bill forward.
Thank you, Senator Powell. Senator Chairman Taylor.
And thank you, Senator. One thing about the testing, what you have before you does have an alternative assessment other than just a STAR. So we have alleviated that. The other outcomes based is college, career, military ready. and it's based on real stuff. It's not just a test. It may be SAT, ACT, because you have to do that to go to college, but it also includes kids actually getting some kind of associate's degree, enrolling in college, or joining the military. And I'll just say once more time, joining the military is not a slam dunk. Right now, currently, 7% of our students do not qualify for the military, so that's not a giveaway. So anyway, just so you know, we've alleviated those. As far as the current year and prior year, that will, you can see the runs before you. We've tried to address that where no one's losing on that change, but it's a key part of what we're trying to do to maintain the state's level of funding into the future with a 2.5%. And that's a key part of it, is going to the current year to do that, to make sure we keep the state share up and the recapture down. So I know people are fearful of what's coming because they haven't not seen the whole package. And that's what I've been trying to tell people all along. Let's wait, let's look at the whole package and not look at individual parts of it, because there's going to be parts of it, just like we're talking about the revenues, there's parts of that people don't like, but we got to look at the big picture on the whole thing. And I appreciate your concerns, Senator Powell.
Thank you very much. Senator Paxton, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members, and Chairman Taylor. To be part of the work of this committee has been the honor of my life. As an educator, I could never have imagined that someday I'd get to be part of something like this. And I truly believe, this is why I'm here, I truly believe it's why we're all here. This is like a moment in history. It is epic, it's transformational, and again, I can't thank you enough for the diligence and the perseverance and just the heart that has gone into this, Chairman Taylor. And I want to thank you for that, and members of the committee as well. This, as we're moving forward, and you and I have spoken about this, there's the policy of this, the changes, the transformation to what education will look like, and to your point, Senator Powell, of really equipping Texas to educate our kids in a way we never have before and take us to the top, to lead, which I think Texas has always been so good at in so many ways, to be ready for the future by educating our kids. And I live in a district and represent a district that's known for its educational excellence. People move to Senate District 8 for the great jobs, but they know that they're going to have great educational opportunity for their children there. And so they embrace educational excellence, and they are excited about the things that are in this bill regarding educational reform. And having said that, they've expressed a tremendous amount of trust, I believe, in me, in our relationship as we've been going through this process. My office has been in close contact with my districts. They're excited, but they do have reservations about certain elements of it. And as you and I spoke, one of those is not having been able to see the runs yet. And I think a lot of their concerns do revolve around, as you said, Senator Powell, the move to current year values, which is an essential piece of the way this is structured. And so without the runs, it's very difficult for them to feel confident about what this looks like for them. I don't want to be part of obstructing, and my districts don't want to obstruct. We all are eager to move toward educational excellence and what that takes. But as much as I think I want to get it out of committee, I want to get it right. And I know that's the commitment of everyone here at the table. I think if I learned, if there's anything we all know about human nature, change is hard. Change is hard, and our districts know that. And if there's anything I learned as an educator, I think it is that to learn is to change. So we are looking at change here. This is almost, it's like this little microcosm of education. We are changing, we are learning by doing this. But, having said that, I thank you again. Those are the concerns we have going forward. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this process. And again, it's an honor to be here and be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paxton. We go to Senator West.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of the runs, well, let me ask this question, and you may or may not know it. In terms of what we received in terms of the draft, there's a column that basically says current state aid. Okay, and I guess that's all the aid that we get from the state, whatever form it is in.
Yes.
And I also know that in the bill, we talk about transition funding. Let's say Senator Watson calls it hold harmless. I call it transition funding.
Yes,
myself.
I prefer your terminology.
Okay, thank you.
Hold harmless has a tendency to be permanent.
Well, this is 5 years.
Yeah, well, it is 5 years because the districts will change as to who's on that. And we'll have to look at a legislature, whether it's us or someone else, will have to look at 5 years from now.
As we've looked at hold harmless over the years too. But I understand, we're transforming it.
Well, they'll have to look at it because it's 5 years.
I know, we will have to look at it at that point. What I'd like though, if it's all possible, is to make certain that out of this, I assume that under the state aid that is being shown for the various districts that we currently have in here, that transition funding is embedded in here. And so I would really like to see what districts are getting transition. And there's two types of transition funding.
And we have asked for that, and so I'm not sure we've gotten that, but we had that question in committee about which districts are on, and I see Vaughn and Leo over there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we've gotten that yet. The districts are actually on a lot. Okay, LBB will be giving us that.
Okay.
Right now what we have is unofficial, like I said, TA, so we'll get that from LBB, but we have that request in to get that information. Because I think it's important to know what districts that is. But like I said, those numbers will probably change with outcomes-based funding, some of those other things. The people who may need that may not be on that list that are on there today 5 years from now. So I think that's an encouraging part. We may still have to have some transition 5 years from now, but it may very well be different districts than today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator West. Senator Bettencourt.
Mr. Chairman, and I enjoyed the seating arrangement today because it reminds me on the Commission of Public School Finance.
That's right.
Right, where the three of us spent a year, and while the other senators were making their comments, I flash read the bill, and it brings back a lot of memories.
What's flash read?
Flash read means flash every page and try to stick it upstairs where you can make sense of it. And I lament the committee process not being drawn out for another week. There's so many good things in this bill, so many good things. And like Senator Watson, I would like to lay out some ideas and get some input because I'm reading stuff for the first time that is concerning to me, even the stuff that's here. Now, I do have to laugh that, this bill was originally almost a shell, a blank bill, and there's still some blanks, okay? Unfortunately, on page 295, all the funding mechanism for two blank JRs is blank. We don't know what that is at this time, Mr. Chairman. I assume you have a number in mind. No?
I don't know what numbers are available, to be honest with you.
Well, and I hate to ask.
It may be a bill that's already out there that I'm just not aware. I don't have that.
And I understand the problem with the House calendar, but, a bill of this magnitude, would, in my mind, be well served to have another week of committee work. I have to turn to page 277 and start asking some questions. There's two terms that are defined. It's called a growth limiting factor and a growth limiting percentage on the maximum compressed tax rate on pages 277 to 278. And if I could, if the committee will give me just a minute to read this. The growth limiting factor is a growth limit factor. This is about property tax compression. And it's assigned, and there's groups A, B, C, and D. And it gives a value of 1.025, which is a number I understand, that's the 0.25% plan, 0.35, 0.45, and 1.1. And then on page 288, it does something that I need to ask about. Well, actually, it starts at the bottom of page 77. If 2.5%, if the annual inflation rate is less than 4%. If 3.5%, if the annual inflation rate is equal to or greater than 4%, but less than 6%. C, 4.5%, if the annual inflation rate is equal to or greater than 6%, but less than 8%. Or 10% if the annual inflation rate is equal to or greater than 8%.
Yeah, if I could?
Please.
That is the out years. We start at 2.5 in year 3, kicks in. And then beyond that, if we have exorbitant inflation, we want to make sure we allow for that. Because our schools would be facing that. So we still have those limits in there. But did you know the long-term inflation rates have been well below these numbers? But we have had a period of time in our history where it was in very high rates of inflation. We would not want to constrain our districts at that point to an artificial cap of 2.5% if inflation is at 10%. So we do allow in the out years for some opportunity that they need that because of hyperinflation or something to take care of that.
And Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, because we've been on this train for a long time, I'm looking at section D, that the growth factor on page 278 is 10%, and the annual inflation rate is equal to or greater than 8. So that means that if the inflation rate's 8, the growth factor on the property tax bills is 2 points higher than inflation.
I would imagine that may be an error.
And this is why I lament not having the committee process.
And once again, that's a very good point. We will look at that and have that corrected. I think those numbers got flipped, to be honest with you. Because you see the trend, it's always below, and that one got flipped. So we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
And, without knowing with these type of factors in it, page 289, there's blank factors on supplemental school district tax bills and the amounts calculated.
So what page? And by the way, that was in the draft last Thursday. So once again, I'm sorry we haven't caught this up.
I mean, I'm catching up on reading it because I just
been out there
flash
for a while.
it. Okay, that's right. I'll just close with this. I can't vote for this bill at this point. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote, but I can't vote for it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I know the time that's been spent on this, but there are clear errors in the bill already. And the fact that the entire funding mechanism is totally unknown at this time gives me great pause for concern. I just wish we had more committee time. And that's just what I picked up reading it once. I can't possibly vote for a bill that has property taxes going up higher than an inflation rate in a fixed format like this. I just lament we don't have the time. And I guess, Mr. Chairman, we have to vote today. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. That's what.
Then I'm respectfully not going to be voting for the bill.
Okay. Like I said, we will have the opportunity to correct this on Friday. We've had this out. That particular issue's been out there for a while. I'm sorry it wasn't caught, but many people will be reading this bill. And we'll find some more things, I can assure you, and we will correct those. As you know, we also often have authors correcting amendments right off the bat to go through a particular bill of this length to fix things like that. So I appreciate you pointing that one out, and we'll get that corrected.
Members, other questions? Senator Fallon.
I mean, a lot of folks have said some, very sagacious and wise things, but I did want to just kind of weigh in and say that, politics is the art of the possible. And it's far from perfect, and this process hasn't been perfect, and many people work very hard. And I do take issue with some folks that say that Texas is finally recognizing the importance of public education, because I think we've always recognized that. And is that better? Sorry. We've always recognized the importance of public education, and we have a challenge. And when you compare states and say that Texas is in the bottom quad, where we're a very large state. We're geographically diverse, we're economically diverse, we're racially diverse. We have language challenges as well. We have mass unlawful migration that we're dealing with that small states like Vermont, Maine, North Dakota don't deal with. So it's really not a fair comparison. The fair comparisons would be Texas, say, to Florida, New York, Illinois, California, and we are very highly competitive in public education in those realms. It's very difficult. We have challenges that just many states don't have. And having said all that, we have a unique, I think we all agree on the committee, a very unique generational opportunity to do great things. I mean, we were just down in Natural Resources, and a young African-American man named Brian Nia, who took courses when he was 16 years old to better his station, and to know that he wanted to be have a skill that would propel him to live his dream. I mean, that's the kid that I'm rooting for. He's 21 years old, and he comes to this Capitol and he testifies, and he didn't know about the fact that there were programs that could have helped him pay for everything, and he paid for it out of pocket. And I told him, Amy, he's one of the heroes of Texas. He gives me hope. And that's what gets me excited about this kind of stuff and this transformational opportunities we have, because we root. It's an American principle to root for the underdog and root for the folks that don't have a lot of things going for them, but they want to make themselves better. And I really identify with those folks because I grew up in a house that was valued at $13,000. And I want everybody to have those opportunities. And we want to work toward a meritocracy in this country. We have that opportunity here, and that's what excites me. So although there are some holes and we do need to fix them, I'm going to support you. Thank you very much.
Senator, if I could, you get ready to vote.
30 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. No problem.
Senator Hughes.
It's all been said so well. This represents a whole lot of work. The work continues, and there's always a perfecting amendment, even on a 5-page bill. We're going to need a perfecting amendment. That's nothing new. The chair's already working on that. I'm thankful for all that's gone into this by so many people around the state, folks from my district and elsewhere. We're going to continue working, and I'm excited about the finished product. I'm going to be voting yes to move this and continue to build the process and get something big, transformational done for our students, for our teachers, for our taxpayers, and for our future. So I think I'll be voting aye.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. Senator Chairman Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I find it interesting that we're on this floor, this historic chamber, when we're doing what we're doing. All through this process for the last, how many years I've been on education, it's been about 5.4 million students and the millions that come after them. And yes, we do have those challenges in the state, but we can meet those challenges. We're Texans. That's what we do. There's no challenge we can't face. And this has been a grueling process, but it's worth it. And I appreciate your vote.
Members, I have to at this time, and I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, your passion. I look up at the gallery right now and I see many, many young people, students from different parts of the state that are here, that are depending on us to come together as a Texas family of legislators who have been elected from different parts of the state to address an issue that's paramount. The number one issue, I guess, for everyone. And I too would like to see the greatest educational system ever in the history of our state be put together this session. I think we have the ability to do that. We have a brain trust here like I've never seen before in all my 33 years that I've been in this Capitol. And I'm just grateful that I too, Senator Paxton, have an opportunity as a kid growing up in a government housing to sit here and witness this myself with men and women who I respect so much. We have a leader that's a true leader, a statesman, who wants to do the very best for our children. I am not critical of anyone who obviously is not ready to vote for this, but I'm saying that we can move forward, and along the way, we can make those adjustments that are needed to make this the greatest bill ever to have been voted on in this chamber or this Capitol by anyone. Senator Campbell, before I recognize Chairman Taylor for a motion.
Thank you. So, excuse me, members, for being late. I was caught up in something else, but I just wanted to thank Chairman Taylor for the Herculean work that you have put in to do this. As you had said before, there's going to be things we all like, things that others of us don't like, but this is transformational. I think we all can agree on that. I've got schools that use their dollars efficiently, and they may be harmed initially by some of the choices, but this is a great process. We'll keep going forward. Thank you for what you do, and I am ready to vote yes on this.
Members, at this time, there are no further questions. Senator Taylor, Chairman Taylor moves adoption of the new committee substitute. Is there any objection to that motion? If not, the substitute is adopted on House Bill 3. Senator Taylor moves now that House Bill 3 do not pass, but that the new committee substitute adopted in lieu thereof do pass and be printed. Clerk, please call the roll.
Taylor.
Aye.
Lucio.
Aye.
Bettencourt.
Present, not voting.
Campbell. Aye. Fallon. Aye. Hall. Hughes. Yes. Paxton. Powell. Watson. Aye. West. Aye.
8.
There being 8 ayes, 3 present, not voting, the committee substitute for House Bill is reported favorably. Yeah.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just worried about that glass. I guess I don't want it to go to local. Is that? Members, I do appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, that's usually your job. No, I think we need to go. I'm sorry. Yes. Members, thank you much. At this time, we'll leave the Senate Committee on Education and recess up to the call of the chair. Thank you.